Welcome, everyone, to the Marijuana Times show for March 2nd, 2018. I'm your host, Joe Klare. I find myself and many other great writers over at marijuanatimes.org, covering the cannabis community and industry for you. Of course, you can find these videos there as well. For easy sharing on your social media networks, make sure you search the Marijuana Times on Apple Podcasts to find the audio-only version of the show. For those of you on the go, you can also search, if you're looking for the videos, search the Marijuana Times on Facebook and on YouTube. A lot of stuff to talk about today, kind of an international flavor for today's show. Stories out of Australia and Canada, and also the Cannabis Candidate out of Illinois. Talk about all that coming up. But first, the Marijuana Times show is brought to you by NatureSideCannabis.com and their line of organic, all-natural pesticide products. If you're a cannabis cultivator, you don't want to be using harmful chemicals on your grow. You want to grow safe and poison-free. You also want to make sure you pass various pesticide regulations in your state. Natureside Cannabis products are approved for cannabis cultivation use in states like Colorado, Washington, and Oregon. Be regulatory compliant. Let the people at NatureSideCannabis.com help you do so. Of course, also check out their line of all-natural, organic pesticide products. Make sure you go safe and poison-free with NatureSideCannabis.com, a proud sponsor of the Marijuana Times show. Our first story is from MarijuanaTimes.org, from Jason Sander. Australian researchers announced a study to determine if cannabis can treat patients with Tourette Syndrome. The study has been announced in Australia to see if cannabis can be used as one of the... If Tourette Syndrome is one of the things that cannabis can help, that medical marijuana can help. The study itself will take place at Wesley Medical Research Institute with 24 adult patients participating in the study. Neuropsychiatrist Philip Mosley will be directing the team of researchers to see if medical marijuana could eventually be used as an alternative to the antipsychotic medications often prescribed to those with the tic disorder. Researchers want to see if cannabis can help calm the involuntary actions of patients with Tourette syndrome. These involuntary actions are known as tics and vary widely depending on the individual, from blinking to hand and jaw movements, etc. In about 10 or 15% of cases, which are the more well-known, those with Tourette syndrome might involuntarily shout offensive and crude words known as coprolalia. Patients with the disorder are usually prescribed antipsychotic medication to treat their Tourette syndrome. As is the case with many other pharmaceuticals, these antipsychotic meds can cause some awful side effects, of course, side effects that would not be present if cannabis was used. There's also the possibility of brain surgery, an even more extreme fix for Tourette syndrome. This particular study will be focusing on the administration of both THC and CBD. Until now, most similar studies paid closer attention to the effectiveness of CBD as a treatment, but they're going to try both to, as Mosley says, try to hit the sweet spot as far as helping those with Tourette syndrome. Go check out that story over at marijuanatimes.org. Australia really coming to the forefront. Places like Australia and Israel are getting into a lot of medical marijuana research, which is a good thing. You know, a lot of other countries besides the United States are getting into medical marijuana. Germany is selling medical marijuana now in their pharmacies and getting that program up and running. Obviously, Canada has mail-order medical marijuana, and they're working on recreational legalization for later this year. A lot of countries looking to do research and more when it comes to medical marijuana, and that is a very good thing. This next story is from the Chicago Sun-Times. Cannabis Candidate calls for legalizing marijuana joint in hand. You can see him there if you have the video version of the show in his latest ad. Former FBI National Security official Benjamin Thomas Wolf keeps his medals and credentials at his Ukrainian Village campaign office, along with joints of marijuana. As a cannabis user, he says, "I think it's important we get out in front and talk about it. We realize that cannabis can bring billions of dollars to the state. It's medicine for millions of people around the country. It changes criminal justice reform. And personally, I think it's a wonderful recreational substance as well." Former FBI National Security official Benjamin Thomas Wolf. Doesn't that sound like a book or a movie? I don't know if it'd be a good one, but it just got the beginnings of something there. Somebody run with that. Somebody go write that story. He's a former FBI official. He's a candidate. His name is Benjamin Thomas Wolf, and he likes marijuana. Write that up. It's your homework assignment for those of you out there listening and watching. Wolf moved to Chicago 5 years ago and now owns the Logan Square Restaurant Park and Field and teaches at Roosevelt University and East West University. The photo you see there is released Monday, features him sitting in front of an American flag painting. Above him, smoke rises from the joint he presumably just puffed on. He says, the joint is mine. We had a poker night with our campaign staff, and I think that was left behind. So he decided to grab it for his campaign ad. Just this everything, just about every story now that I talk about on this show has the advantage of really forwarding the mainstreaming or the normalizing of marijuana in people's minds. Seeing a congressional candidate sitting there with a joint in hand. By the way, he's a candidate for the 5th congressional district in Illinois, which covers Chicago's north and northwest sides, O'Hare Airport, and Oak Brook, for those of you who are familiar with the area. Just more of the mainstreaming of the normalization of cannabis. It's an amazing thing, and story after story after story forwards that. For whatever else they do, whatever advantages come from the event that the story is talking about, they all have that same thing in common, which is pushing forward the normalization of cannabis. You know, as I've said many times before, if you watch a movie and you see someone drinking a beer, you're not going to remember the beer. You might not even remember after the movie. Someone asks you, "What were they holding in their hand?" You'll say, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was a beer. Maybe it was an ashtray. Maybe it was a tea. I don't know." But if you see someone in a movie smoking a joint, you remember that. You immediately say, "Hey, they're smoking a joint." It's because you're not as immune to the sight as you are to the sight of someone drinking alcohol. But one day, that will change. And that's when we'll know that marijuana is fully in the mainstream. When you can smoke a joint in a movie or a TV show or just at somebody's house and nobody really thinks about it. It's the same as drinking a beer. It's kind of the level that we're aiming for. This last story comes from CBC.ca out of Canada. Canadian firm becomes first pot producer to list on major U.S. stock exchange. Talk about the normalization of cannabis. Toronto-based Kronos Group is set to be the first marijuana company to list on a major U.S. stock exchange when it begins trading on the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite. The move is a significant milestone for the company and the broader marijuana sector that has faced resistance from the Trump administration. Of course, you know what happened with Jeff Sessions and the Cole memo and the rescission of the Cole memo and all of that. This uplisting to NASDAQ is a major corporate milestone and reflects the significant progress we have made in the strengthening of our corporate governance and expanding our global footprint, said Mike Gorenstein, CEO of Kronos Group, in a statement on Monday. The company is already trading in Toronto on the TSX Venture Exchange, and its shares are up over 5% in the afternoon after news of the listing. Kronos shares themselves are up over 200% in the past year, similar to its counterparts in Canada that have seen shares skyrocket on the expected legalization of recreational marijuana in the country by this summer. Maybe this summer, maybe closer to fall. Things are being delayed up in Canada. The NASDAQ listing allows U.S. investors that were hesitant over the legality of investing in marijuana stocks outside the country to now invest legally. Gorenstein said, quote, "We believe this will increase long-term shareholder value by improving awareness, liquidity, and appeal to institutional investors." And as I just said, the mainstreaming of marijuana just goes a long way. You know, it's one of the things one of the things we look at is we see the stock exchange. Oh, that's an amazing thing. That's where the quote unquote legitimate companies are. And now a massive marijuana company is on the NASDAQ, which is a very famous stock exchange in the United States, second only to the New York Stock Exchange as far as, I guess, fame and all that. It continues the mainstreaming of marijuana, and that is a great thing because in the end, that is what's going to push legalization over the final finish line. Is when people just aren't worried about it anymore. The businesses are legitimate. People are walking into the stores all the time, just like they would walk into a Walmart or walk into a liquor store or walk into a Walgreens and buying marijuana, and it's just a normal everyday thing, and people don't think about it anymore. It's just part of their normal routine. Then we'll know that we have arrived, so to speak. And hopefully we're doing our part here at the Marijuana Times to advance that normalization of cannabis, because that is the way cannabis should be treated. And it would be treated to this day. currently in this world that we live in if it wasn't for the prohibition of marijuana and the decades of stigma that surrounds and the decades of lies and propaganda that have been pumped into the heads of school children, to things like the DARE program and other programs and other influential people. If it wasn't for all that, we wouldn't have to go through all this. The normalization of marijuana would have been complete a long time ago, but here we are. We're going to keep doing it 5 days a week, what we do here at the Marijuana Time Show, advancing the truth about cannabis. Like, share, comment on these videos to help us in that effort. Of course, thank you to NatureSideCannabis.com for being a proud sponsor of the show. Check out the organic, all-natural pesticides from NatureSideCannabis.com. Thanks, everybody. That's the end of the week. Your weekend can officially get started now, so go and get to it, and we'll see you back here on Monday on the Marijuana Time Show.